We now produce probably software 5 times faster, but at the same time, we're not moving 5 times faster as an industry, right? Models have helped us build tools that can generate code very, very effectively, but they haven't been able to help us run production until now. There was a period of time where 90% of our SRE team resigned over 6 months because of burnout. So we saw an opportunity with Mayang to potentially rethink completely how production should be run.
5 years from now, most of the code will be developed by AI. Most of the production software will be run by AI in some way. How do you think about the role of Resolve in that world?
The way agents write code on your behalf, the same thing is going to happen with production. Resolve is going to be the set of agents that help you run production, and humans will move and operate at a higher level of abstraction. We would like to be the agentic solution that every company uses to run the production system and to accelerate engineering and technology.
Hi everyone, I'm Sebastian Duesterhoeft, and this is the Investment Memo, the show where founders reveal the stories behind their businesses and how will they shape the future of the industries. I'm joined by Spiros Xanthos, co-founder and CEO of ResolveAI, which is building AI for prod, an AI-powered platform defining the future of software engineering. Today, their core offering automates incident investigations, helps discover optimizations across their infrastructure, and helps engineers ship faster with production context. ResolveAI has rapidly become one of the most compelling companies in AI infrastructure, with customers like Coinbase, DoorDash, and Salesforce reporting dramatic improvement in reliability and engineering efficiency, which has translated into significant tangible ROI. Spiros,
Sebastian,
thank you for joining us.
thanks for inviting me to the podcast.
What a big day. Congrats on a huge Series A, $125 million. What I have here is our internal memo. I'll share this with you. And what I thought we'd do today is we'll go through it. Would love to get your thoughts on it. Maybe before we dive in, I'll kind of set the scene a little bit. We've all observed, obviously, over the last 2 years, what's been happening on the software development side. We've been seeing products like Cloud Code, Cursor, Cognition really change how software is being developed. The pace of software development has changed massively, but it's also created a lot of downstream issues. Some of the challenge that existed with productionizing that software, they existed pre-AI coding, and it's now getting even worse. That's where you come in. And you've kind of termed this new space AI production. Maybe for our viewers that are less familiar with the space, just describe some of the problems that actually occur in production. What are the issues that the engineers have to deal with?
Even starting from the world before AI coding agents, software engineers spend the majority of their time running, maintaining, and improving production rather than building. It's not atypical to see 30-20% of the time spent on coding and 80% on running. Obviously, coding agents make that a lot harder because now we produce a lot more software, but that doesn't mean we're moving faster. Models have helped us build tools that can generate code very, very effectively, but they haven't been able to help us run production until now. And that was the problem we set on solving. And it takes a lot more work around agents and models to be able to handle the production complexity and deliver an outcome.
When you say AI for production or running something in production, for people who aren't actually doing that on a day-to-day basis, what does it actually mean?
For anybody who delivers, let's say, their business software, the most important part of software is actually having a system that is reliable and responds to human requests, right? To run production, unlike coding, you have to deal with many, many disparate tools. You have code, you have observability tools, logs, metrics, traces. You have infrastructure that is itself very dynamic and changes all the time. Essentially, models have solved coding, but they haven't solved software engineering. And why is that? It is because most of the production data is outside of the training set of the models, and it's very, very hard to obtain because this data is unique to every enterprise, and it also is very hard type of data to even simulate. Maybe more importantly, you have a lot of tribal knowledge that is very, very specific to every company that usually humans accumulate over months or years of work, and it's not something that is available to agents and models easily.
I'd love to hear you just talk a bit about what you've seen from a practitioner perspective in the space and really the challenges you're seeing in the space that made you start this company.
I built 2 observability companies before. LogInsight, which was a log analytics platform out of my PhD. In fact, we started by trying to build a code analysis tool. That was kind of what I was working on during my PhD. But we discovered that at the time, at least, the pain of managing large data center data in the form of logs and unstructured data was much more painful. So we pivoted to that. I was quite a bit ahead of my time, I would say, with code, but here we are. And then in 2018, together with Mayang, who's my co-founder, we co-created OpenTelemetry. At the time, what we saw was that it was becoming very, very hard to manage production systems as we move to the cloud, because the cloud introduced a lot more complexity in the form of microservices, dynamic infrastructure. So our approach to it was to create, let's say, an open source, open standards approach to how we collect data in open telemetry, which since has become the de facto standard, and then to build a much more powerful observability platform. We ended up getting acquired by Splunk, and I saw firsthand what it means to manage a very large production system. At times, we would freeze production for a couple of months between like Black Friday and New Year's, because most of our customers were e-commerce, and we were worried about any outage. There was a period of time where 90% of our SRE team resigned over 6 months because of burnout. So to me, it was apparent that the way I approached solving this problem in the past, by trying to convince everybody to consolidate observability, was not sufficient, right? In fact, maybe it was almost the wrong approach, because it's such a hard problem to consolidate everything in one place. Yes, it's powerful when you do it, but it's too much effort. So what we saw, maybe with AI, and I guess what we probably call agents today, was an opportunity to rethink from first principles how production should be run. And obviously, it was a big problem before. It is painful for humans. It is expensive. It's very, very hard to deliver a reliable system. And even when you do it, it comes at a huge cost of human effort, tools, and infrastructure cost. So we saw an opportunity with Mayank to potentially rethink completely how production should be run. And of course, since then, especially since the last 12 months when agentic coding has taken off, it only has become a harder problem, right? Because we now produce probably software 5 times faster, but at the same time, we're not moving 5 times faster as an industry, right? Because now the bottleneck has moved to production. How do I debug, keep reliability, improve, maintain my production system in the face of much more code being generated?
One thing that stood out to us is we already have dozens of observability tools, or just tools that give us insight into what's happening, but that's not really the problem anymore. What I think is really about, how do you coordinate all that? How do you change the situation from a person looking at 10 different dashboards to an agent that actually can solve this end-to-end? Like, just describe that problem a little bit more.
Yes. Most production tasks, take incidents as an example, require to use many, many different tools that hold the subset of the data and require, for example, code, telemetry, logs, metrics, traces, knowledge of infrastructure, and more importantly, understanding of the tribal knowledge that exists that is very, very specific to an environment. So it is a very hard process for humans, because we are, let's say, the operators of these tools, and operating each one of these tools is a hard problem by itself, but then we're also the glue across them. So I think what's happening with agents, we're moving, let's say, from these systems of record being the most valuable thing in running the enterprise, agents becoming the system of knowledge, let's say, that is actually what will help you run the enterprise and accelerate your business.
Can you talk a bit about the shape of the business you think it requires to win in this space?
To be able to solve this problem well, you have to have the right user interface, like I described earlier. Also, you have to be able to build the right agentic framework and the right agents to be able to, work across all the problems that exist in production. And then, of course, you have to have the data to be able to essentially train those agents. And then in the end, you have to essentially also have a model that is better built for this type of problem. So the way we see Resolve is as a full stack company that owns the interface, owns the agents, owns the data, and owns the model for the domain.
How should we envision what that product actually looks like in real life?
A comparison with coding agents can illustrate this, right? The typical coding agent is one agentic loop with about 10 to 20 tools that the agent can use to understand code, create diffs, etc. But for prod system, you need to have an agent for code, an agent for logs, an agent for metrics, an agent for traces, an agent for infrastructure. And more importantly, you have to have a way to discover all the knowledge that exists across tools, human minds, and documents, and remember and use that over time. So it's a much more complex system with a lot of coordination that has to happen across all of these agents. What we discovered in building Resolve is that you have to meet humans where they are. Resolve shows up, let's say, in Slack or Microsoft Teams, and responds to an incident or alert as a human, making it very, very, very easy for, let's say, engineers to start using it and adopting it without having to really be trained in any new system.
You mentioned the tribal knowledge a minute ago. And I think I've heard you say the best engineer is actually the bottleneck in many companies, because the knowledge of an internal system often sits with one specific engineer, not written down in some rule book. How do you capture that knowledge today?
What we realized in building Resolve is, and we approached it from first principles, is that you need to build a product that has a form factor that makes, let's say, engineers want to use it every time. If you build something that is a black box sitting on the side, getting an input, which is a question or maybe an incident, and trying to give you an answer, it will never work in practice. Because what happens is even if you get it right almost 89% of the time, you still get it wrong or not fully right for a subset of times, right? Because we're dealing with probabilistic systems. So humans don't trust the tool anymore, right? Because they don't know when it's right and when it's wrong. So what we discovered was that the best way for humans to train the agents, but also the best way for humans to want to trust the tool and want to use it every time, is to build it in a way that it is interactive. Engineers can provide the input, can course correct, and then it gets them to an answer faster every time. Even if, let's say, the smoking gun is not there for an agent to discover, maybe it's not there even for a human to discover, right? It is very, very important that cuts back 90% of the work. And then if you do all of that well, what happens is in a matter of weeks to months, the agent becomes fully aware of all the tribal knowledge in your environment and starts becoming almost as effective as, your smartest engineers, right? And then as a result, then engineers can focus on more creative work, can focus on building, can focus on architecting, the future of your product.
In order to get that data, the customers are a really critical part of this. Talk about who are the customers today? Who are you trying to really win over?
Most of our customers today are either in technology or financial services. And the problem is applicable whether you have a few engineers or a few thousands. So the more complex the environment, the harder it is to run production. So the value of Resolve increases almost linearly, superlinearly with the size of the environment you have to deal with. And today we're already being used in production in some of the hardest environments in the world, in places like Coinbase, DoorDash, Salesforce.
Those are some amazing customers.
Yes, we're very proud that they have trusted us.
You're not doing this by yourself. You have a fantastic co-founder in Mayank. This is also not the first company you're starting with him. Just maybe talk a bit about him. He's so important to the success.
Mayank and I know each other for 21 years. We were PhD classmates at UIUC. We actually met in our first day in grad school at the International Student Orientation. I obviously came from Greece. He came from India. We met at that event. He was my TA for computer architecture. He says he takes pride in my depth, let's say, in computer architecture. But what I remember from Mayank is that he was brilliant. And when I dropped out to start my first company, the log analysis company I built, I tried many times to convince Mayank to join us, but I couldn't. Eventually, after he finished his PhD and joined Microsoft and drove a lot of large systems there for being in Azure, I managed to convince him to join us at VMware. And the reality was that he was aspiring to start a company, right? And he felt like we were the team that he could do this with. So we've been working together since 2012. This is the second company we start together. We built Omniscient together. And it has been an amazing partnership because we deeply respect each other. We both bring skills that, are complementary to each other, but then there is a huge amount of trust in each other. And that's what makes it special.
A whole set of different skill sets. You obviously have an incredible amount of expertise in observability going back to your Splunk days, so does Mayank. But this is not just an observability problem. This is also an AI problem. Just talk about how you assemble the right team to really build here.
Yes, and I would argue that this is a software problem plus AI. You have to have extremely deep understanding and intuition of the problem because you have to be able to essentially take that and encode it into agents and tools. But also to make agents work in production, you have to have very deep intuition and understanding of models. Our team now is a combination, about half and half, of people who come from a systems or observability, kind of like distributed systems background. And the other half is people who were either researchers or applied AI engineers in places like DeepMind. Rushin, our VP of engineering, his team basically built Deep Research and Canvas and a lot of the agentic products in Gemini. And we found that you need both and you need deep expertise in both domains. Expertise alone is not enough. You have to figure out a way to make those two kind of domains come together in a way that produces good outcomes.
Obviously, when you go on this journey of building the company, the team is incredibly important. The founders are important. We think a lot about founders as we think about making an investment. You talked about your background and Mayank's background. Obviously, you have a lot of context given your prior experience. The piece I actually want to touch on is more the culture. I remember distinctly the second meeting we had with you was on a Sunday. It was 11 a.m. I walked into your office and there were 40 people in the office, right? And you have a little more than 100 people. So basically half the company was in the office on a Sunday, 11 a.m. That's a very special culture. That shows a level of intensity. That was 4 weeks before you went and had an incredible reinvent at the end. But just talk a bit about how you think about culture, how you think about kind of setting the right intensity within the company, where clearly we're at a moment in time where we think over the next 12 months, this category will really inflect in a very meaningful way. And we have to capture that opportunity. So yeah, talk about the culture you're trying to build.
What I'm the proudest about at Resolve is the team we put together. It's very hard to create a culture, right? Like, it's not that you say that I want the culture to be like this and it just happens. You have to live it, and you have to be very honest with yourself also about what are the things you want to do and not do. So in our case, I spend most of my time recruiting. If you ask me what is the thing I did the most in this company, was recruiting, because it is a very hard problem, it is a very big opportunity, and you need to move very quickly. So you need to have many smart people around that are passionate about solving the problem alongside you, and they can do it also at the same velocity and intensity. A few of the principles we follow is we're a very transparent company, actually, and externally and internally. Everybody in the company has full knowledge of our goals, what's going well and what's not going well. When you do that, people really believe in the mission and work hard to achieve these goals. And usually, as a founder, you're not the person with the best knowledge to solve any given problem almost in the company. Your role is more setting the direction, maybe setting the pace, and making sure, everybody, has the same ambition for the outcome. But most of the actual hard work happens from everyone else around you. And what you were describing about the Sunday, we never said in the company that, we're obviously 5 days a week in the office. And I think that's very, very important part of our culture. But we never said you should be in the office on the weekend. And I don't think you can ask anybody to work hard. People do it because they feel they're on a mission.
You just raised a very large round, $125 million. Even in today's world, $125 million Series A is big. What are you going to do with it over the next 12 months? What does it allow you to do?
First of all, as a 4-time founder, I don't believe that raising money is success, right? It's obviously a very, very important tool. And especially if you have partners like Lightspeed, it definitely helps you get to success faster. But it is a tool, right? It's not it's the means, it's not the end. Now, in AI, we see such a huge opportunity, and we see the market maturing so quickly that this is the right way to do it, in my opinion. It takes huge amount of intense work to make it happen so quickly, and it takes a lot of capital. But our goal is to be able to expand our go-to-market to satisfy this huge amount of need we see out there. And at the same time also is to expand our work in the models a lot faster, and to expand the other use cases that Resolve is applicable for in production. Sebastian, can I ask you a question?
Please do.
Why did you decide to invest in this space, and why Resolve?
I'd like to have had a front row seat to AI software development over the last 2 years. We're large investors in Anthropic, and have obviously seen the massive growth in that use case. But as you pointed out as well, that's not enough to actually change how we're developing reliable software products today. It's the creation needs to be done through AI, but that also, again, increases the challenges downstream from that. And we need another AI system that can really handle all the toil that exists today that engineers have to take care of. So we felt like there's a really unique moment in time now where the pressure from these AI coding tools has become so big on the downstream workflows that there needs to be a solution like this. And then, as we always do, we try to find the team that has a unique insight and has sort of a unique set of skills to actually tackle that problem. And we've talked about this a bit, and you obviously have a unique set of skills from your past, as does Mayank. But then we also saw you team up with folks that perhaps you didn't have exposure to before. You brought in it's now 13 people from DeepMind that brought a lot of the AI expertise into the company. And then we talked about it a little bit earlier. The intensity we felt on that Sunday was special. That's really important. That's what it takes, we think, to win in a market like this. And I'll tell you, and it's only been a few weeks, but it already feels like we're part of the family. I've been at your office a few times now. I've had more drinks with your team than I've had all year by myself. So it's just been an incredible experience already. And we're so excited to be partnering with you.
Thanks for the trust, and we're only getting started.
Let's bring this to life a little bit more. Take us into one of your customers. What did production engineering look like pre-Resolve, and what does it look now with you?
Production is very stressful and hard for humans. Take the simple example of humans being on call and having to respond to alerts and incidents. It's maybe in the middle of the night, you get paged, you have to wake up, open your laptop and try to see what's going on. It's always a cold start problem, whereas a human, you have a very hard time knowing where to start. Even if you have some intuition because you've been there before, it takes a long time to go check all your hypotheses. You also have all the pressure and stress of what if I do something wrong. Now, with Resolve, by the time, let's say in a similar scenario, by the time you got paged, Resolve has already looked at, let's say, the full history of the system. It actually went and checked in real time all the data available, what changes happened recently, right? Is there anything in metrics or logs that might indicate a problem? is there a third-party dependency that might be causing an issue? So by the time you connect, usually Resolve has done all the work, all the heavy lifting, and oftentimes has the answer and the solution for you. And even if you have to do extra work, Resolve is much faster in getting you the answers instead of you having to go figure out the query language, let's say, of a particular log tool, or the way to obtain, let's say, the feature flags that are on in that scenario. And that doesn't stop with just incidents. It actually translates to all the work engineers do on a day-to-day basis. Anytime I want to debug an issue, I usually have to obtain data from multiple disparate systems and connect it today. I'm both the operator of these tools and the glue across them. This is not work that, let's say, it's humans love doing or they excel at. An agent can much better query these tools, analyze the data, and give you back an answer. Or every time you have a question, you usually have to interrupt somebody. And that's something that we as humans probably don't like doing also, right? If you're doing your work and you have the answer I'm looking for, I don't want to come and interrupt you like 5 times a day. It's much easier to obtain these answers from a system that is there as my assistant. And then beyond that, I would say that humans or engineers probably love building. That's what we all like doing. And I think if we manage to build agents that do all the heavy lifting, take away the stressful work, we can focus on the creative part of the job.
Can you share a couple of examples of ROI or KPIs that you're seeing with your customers? The change in times in the time it takes to get a system back up and running, or the size of a team that you're not increasing because you now have Resolve and you no longer need the 10 extra SREs. So just give us a bit of an idea of the impact that you're seeing.
Yes. First of all, I'm a huge believer that AI is not going to replace human engineers, but what it's going to do is going to allow us to produce technology 100 times faster. And as a result, I think this is going to be hugely impactful and positive for society. So I don't see fewer engineers, but what I see is a lot more technology being produced. And given that models have solved the coding problem, this is now the next frontier that will completely enable us to build technology a lot faster. Lucky to be trusted by some very large companies from the early stages of our life. We've been working with companies like DoorDash, Coinbase, Salesforce. The value we've seen is that these companies can move a lot faster with high confidence. And just to give you a very specific example, Coinbase did a study where they compared MTTR before and after Resolve, and they saw that Resolve can improve the time it takes to essentially resolve an incident by 73%.
Yep.
But we also see huge productivity gains on like day-to-day work that engineers have to perform because they have like all the tools and production knowledge at their fingertips.
I want to talk a little bit about your longer-term vision for Resolve. I remember very vividly when I first met you at your office, you asked me why I'm excited about the space, and I started talking about AI SRE as the space. And I couldn't even finish my sentence. You cut me off and said, Sebastian, you got it completely wrong. This is not about AI
That
SRE.
doesn't sound like me, but
Not at all. You said AI SRE is just a feature, right? And then you started to talk about AI for production, right? And it's a much, much broader vision. Just for the viewers, like help us understand how you really think about AI SRE as the initial wedge into the market, but then ultimately there's a much bigger opportunity.
from the beginning, our vision was that we should build agents that help you run production. Like I said, help you do all the heavy lifting, the stressful work, and allow us to build a lot faster. But at the same time, it is very hard to build a product that is so broad from the beginning. Our idea was to build agents that can be on call and help you troubleshoot alerts and incidents and get you to remediation. Along the way, what we discovered though, and it's counterintuitive, is that it's impossible to build a narrow product in production. The reason for that is that for any incident or any other task for that matter, you usually need to have very good knowledge of code. You need to have very good knowledge of telemetry across metrics, logs, traces, even other types of telemetry. You need to have discovered, let's say, a lot of the tribal knowledge that humans use to operate. And essentially to do that, you need to build agents that can very effectively deal with all these types of data and be able to reason very well across them. So effectively to build an AI SRE, let's say, that can resolve incidents, you have to build a system that understands production more broadly. So we found ourselves not only getting to our vision faster, but we had to. What we discovered is like AI SRE by itself is a feature, and if you try to build a narrow product, it's not going to work. Because unless you really understand all these types of data very well, you cannot solve any of the problems. But then once you solve the AI SRE problem the way I'm describing in a general sense, then essentially you have built a solution that can perform many other tasks, help you optimize infrastructure cost, help you manage your platform, even help you build software with full production context.
It's a massive, massive opportunity. 5 years from now, most of the code will be developed by AI. Most of the production software will be run by AI in some way. What does that look like? Like, how do companies, how do engineering teams look like 5 years from now? So it'll take us into the limit of what you think this can be.
First of all, I think we are still on an exponential curve of improvement. And it's very hard for us to visualize how the world might look like when we're on that curve. I've seen it myself with Resolve and the evolution. It would take us probably 6 months to, let's say, double the effectiveness from a very low baseline also, right? At this point, it takes us probably a month or less to improve the system dramatically, right? I'm surprised myself by the improvements we managed to make. I do see, like, over the next year or two, the way agents write code on your behalf, and nobody, practically speaking, writes code without an agent, the same thing is going to happen with production. Resolve is going to be the set of agents that help you run production, and humans will move and operate at a higher level of abstraction. And they should be able to move a lot faster. And their life should be easier also, because a lot of these problems are painful. We're still limited, though, by kind of the tools we have at our disposal, because most of these tools were designed for humans. The other thing I see happening over the next, let's say, 2-3 years, I see like the underlying platforms and tools evolving very, very quickly in order to become, let's say, much more agent-friendly and allow us to move a lot faster. And then I would say, if you take it a bit further, if all these things happen, I do expect that we should be able to move much faster than the speed at which we move today, where humans are still, at the wheel. And the beauty of that, or the nice thing about that, is that I think we will be able to solve much harder technical problems that we cannot solve today because of, the limitations we have. So I see a future where agents build and run software. And I think this future is a very bright future for humanity, if you wish, because we should be able to solve much harder problems, and we should be able to create services that are a lot more accessible to everyone.
We couldn't agree more. It's really exciting. How do you think about the role of Resolve in that world?
Our aspiration is to be the company that has the most impact in software, simply. And we would like to be the agentic solution that every company uses to run their production system and to accelerate engineering and technology. And want to do that by becoming, let's say, the intelligence layer. We have no intention of competing with the existing vendors in the space. We want to collaborate and want to more and more take away, let's say, toil and difficult work and accelerate engineering, generally speaking. And I see ourselves in the next few years expanding to multiple use cases around production and becoming a platform that humans can use for many tasks in production.
5 years from now, are you an AI lab or are you something different?
I think, especially with transformers, it is very hard to start today and build a company that starts with a model. Even if you manage to build a model that is better in some dimension than the frontier models, it's very easy for those to expand and cover the use case. But I do believe also that if you start with a problem that is very deep and wide and supports, let's say, has enough revenue and margins to support building your own model, you can have much better data than the labs, and you end up building actually a model that's better. And that is our goal.
Well, this was fun, Spiros. Thank you for doing this. We're so grateful to be your partners, and let's do this for a decade or two together.
Thanks a lot for inviting me. Thanks a lot for the trust and conviction in the company. And I truly believe that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build a unique, hugely impactful company.
Thank you.
Thank you.